Dr. Tom, do we need to repeat the disclaimer now that we're on Facebook Live as well?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And so, Mary Agnes, can you repeat that disclaimer before we get started?
I can. I think we're live now, so I'll not be a voice from afar. I'll just come on for a quick second. I'm Dr. Tom's marketing director, and it's important for us, especially when we have a guest of Dr. Terry's stature, to remind everyone watching this that Dr. Tom O'Brien, Dr. Terry Wahls, they are not your doctor. They don't have your health history. They don't have your background, your genetics, a file, a question, even your name. None of this is medical advice. This is here for information and to some degree entertainment to help us all elevate our understanding, take what you learn here back to your own medical teams and live better.
Yes, we do. And live better. So yes. What a nice way to start. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. It's Facebook Live. It's 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock here in Costa Rica, midnight in Dublin, 1 a.m. in London and most of Europe, 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in Australia, 11:30 a.m. I think I've got that right, on Wednesday in New Zealand, and it's Facebook Live. And we're really excited to have my friend and compatriot and icon in the field, Dr. Terry Wahls, with us today. Dr. Terry, welcome.
Hey, thank you for having me, Dr. Tom. It's always a pleasure.
It is. And so everyone's in for a treat today. And of course, as always, we're a little loose here on Facebook Live. It's not as formal, so I'm going to start with some shout outs. We've got Marie is here. Oh, even before the shout outs, there's one thing more important than the shout outs, and that is that we have a guest who wants to say hello here. So come here. Yes, come here.
Oh.
This is the newest member of the theDr.com team.
Oh, very, very good. I am so proud of you there. Yes. Why, hello, little one.
Thank you so much. Yes, this is Gio O'Brien, who celebrated his 7-month birthday about 10 days ago.
Well, and congratulations.
Yes, the happiest little boy. He had his first fever 2 nights ago. It went up to 101.7. And so Marzi says it was 100.2. You know, I like the story. I know. And he wasn't happy.
Hello.
He wasn't happy, but he did really well. We did a few basic things, and within a few hours, he fell asleep, woke up in the morning, and he was bright and cheery as usual. So small fevers are a great thing.
Yes, that is a normal physiologic response as we are protecting ourselves from probably a new virus that his immune system is encountering, saying, oh, this is a problem. So they're calling in all those chemokines and cytokines to take care of that mischief.
Yes. We want him to have low-grade fevers on occasion, not often, but on occasion, because it means his body is calling up reserves. Mm-hmm. You know, bacteria and viruses love 98.6. They don't like 99 or 100 or 101. They just don't like it at all.
Correct.
And that's the purpose, is our immune system is protecting our bodies. Okay, that's enough.
Have fun.
All right, thank you.
So it's wonderful to have a fever, for an infant or a child to have a fever once in a while. That's a quote that I didn't know I would ever be so direct about, but it's true. It's wonderful for them to have a slight fever once in a while. It's a good thing. Now back to the shout outs, if I can, just to get us started. Marie was the first one on from Toronto. Saleha is in Florida. Amal's in California. Marilla's in Hollywood, Florida. Mariana's in Chicago. Celia says, welcome, Dr. Terry. Gwendolyn's in New Zealand. And Gwendolyn, am I correct? Is it 11:30 on Wednesday morning? Karen's in North Carolina, and the list goes on, and we'll do shout outs to more people as we go through this episode. But, you know, I don't need to do an introduction of Dr. Terry Wahls. The whole world knows who Terry Wahls is because she follows her heart. And she had the courage to say at some point, what I'm doing isn't working. and she has to do something else. So Terry, can you give us a summary of
Sure.
what happened for
So,
you?
let's sort of go back 40 years ago in medical school. Pains began here at my temple. Those are electrical pains. My first rounds of trigeminal neuralgia. Then 20 years later, I develop weakness in my left leg. I get diagnosed with MS. Conventional doc, professor of medicine, I see the best people, take the newest drugs. 3 years later, I'm in a tilt recline wheelchair. I go back to reading the basic science. I begin experimenting on myself based on what I'm learning. The speed of my decline slows. Then by 2007, I am so weak, I cannot sit up at my desk. My trigeminal neuralgia is more frequent, more severe, more difficult to turn off. And I'm very afraid that it will turn permanently on. So in 2007, it's clear I'm going to become demented, probably, bedridden, probably, and quite possibly have to live with intractable trigeminal neuralgia. But, I discovered the Institute for Functional Medicine. I take this great course on neuroprotection. I have new ideas. I've discovered ancestral health. I've discovered electrical stimulation of muscles. I add in the eStim. I add in these extra supplements. Not a lot happens. And then I have a really big aha moment. What if I redesign my paleo diet? And I've been doing basically AIP for 5 years, gluten-free, dairy-free, no nightshades. And I have this really big aha, like what if I redesign my paleo diet based on all the science I've been studying? So that's more research. Now I'm much more focused on what is it I need to be eating. I redesign my diet. I add in meditation. I've been doing eStim as part of my physical therapy. And 3 months later, my pain is gone. That is huge, just really huge. I am stronger and I am sitting up at my desk.
Which was a big deal.
That is huge because I was also sitting up at the table to have supper. That was also a big deal. And 6 months late, so 6 months into this, I am walking around the hospital without a cane. Huge deal. And then for the first time in 6 years, with my son Zach jogging alongside on the left, my daughter Zeb on the right, I am on my bike, biking around the block. My family's crying, I'm crying, this really feels quite miraculous. And then 3 months after that, so a year into this intervention, I do an 18.5-mile bike ride with my family. Yeah. So this radically changes how I'm thinking about disease and health. It radically changes the way I practice medicine. And my chief of staff at the VA and my chief of medicine at the university decide that I should be shifting my research into this question. Can other people with MS do this complicated protocol that I did? Is it safe? What's the effect size? And so we do that study and it launches a new career path for me. And it launches some really very exciting, very dramatic findings that are shaking up the world.
Yes, yes, and we're going to talk about that and the announcement that you sent to me yesterday. We're going to talk about it, but beforehand, as you were telling your story and that you had this tingling and this pain 20 years ago.
Yeah.
My question is, knowing what we know now, do you think there would have been some biomarkers that we could have identified back then as what your risk factors were?
Oh, sure. So in medical school, the trigeminal neuralgia turns on. And then, we try to treat that. Nothing really works. I try a variety of drugs. I have drug reactions. I decide that I want to have kids, and I have severe endometriosis. That's sort of interesting. End up having to go through IVF and have my son. And then I decide you know what, I'm going to have another one. So I go through IVF again, and I have my daughter. And I'm hospitalized with severe preeclampsia. And while they're evaluating that, they check an ANA, which, by the way, is high, but not high enough to have lupus. So that's good. Had they checked my ANA earlier, I bet it would have been positive. And we also know that we look at the prodrome for MS, and by the way, the prodrome for other autoimmune conditions, whether it's lupus or rheumatoid arthritis, psoriasis, inflammatory bowel disease, endometriosis, severe dysmenorrhea, migraines.
Wow.
These are all prodromes, low-level ANA, anti-nuclear antibody levels. So people are having those autoimmune activities, autoimmune processes, that if those people came to see Dr. Tom or me, we would talk with you about you're at and you don't have a clear diagnosis, you feel bad, you have pain, fatigue, brain fog, nobody can say what's going on. I'm like, this is perfect. We can help you reverse those processes so you never get a diagnosis, have the ANA go back to 0, and it'll be much easier to correct your processes than waiting another 5 to 10 years to get an autoimmune diagnosis.
Critically important concept for everyone to understand is that the mechanisms of autoimmune diseases occur years before there's so much tissue damage that it's obvious that you're really sick in a wheelchair, years beforehand. There's a study, I'd love to talk about this one study. They took 411 healthy people, no diagnosis, no complaints, that were positive ANA, anti-nuclear antibodies. So they had these antibodies, and they're healthy people. Say, well, let's just watch it. We'll check it. We'll wait and see. Within 3 years, 87% of those people were diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. Mm-hmm. That elevated antibodies are never normal. That there's
you don't want to have them.
Yeah, right. You don't want to have them. There's a reason why it's elevated. And if you don't have a diagnosis, most doctors are just trained, well, let's just watch you. You're healthy. Let's wait and see what happens. And
now, in the MS world, we're very excited. My colleagues are very excited about this prodrome. And they say it's a reason for earlier diagnosis. And people, they should all be getting MRIs and started on disease-modifying therapy, even if they don't have any neurologic symptoms. My approach, and I think your approach, Tom, would be, well, we completely agree you should intervene for these people, but if they have no neurologic symptoms, the first intervention should be addressing the root cause of why they have those autoimmune processes, right, and seeing if we can get those ANAs back to 0. Could we reduce and resolve the heavy menstrual bleeding? Could we reduce and resolve the endometriosis? Could we resolve the infertility without the high cost assisted reproductive technologies? And right, I bet Dr. Tom can, and I bet I can help you resolve those things. Very successful.
What a dynamic duo. What fun it is just to hang out with you, because we're so much on the same page. And so now the announcement. First off, my hearty congratulations to you. The announcement that came out in the Multiple Sclerosis News Today. And Dr. Wahls sent me the link. It's online. If you go to the Multiple Sclerosis News Today link, you'll see it right there. The Swank and Wahls diets found to help with MS, fatigue, and quality of life. So Terry, can you tell us about this and what happened here?
So let's talk about the studies. This is the 4th study that we've done in the way it's designed. People with relapsing remitting MS who live within 500 miles of Iowa City. And were willing to be randomized to the Swank or Wahls, came in. We did baseline measurements of their fatigue with fatigue severity scale, modified fatigue impact scale, and then the MS quality of life scales, and we had them walk 6 minutes. Then we said, eat your normal diet. and we were going to come back in 12 weeks. So we didn't want them to change their diet at all. So this is the observation period. And we wanted to show, was fatigue and quality of life and walking endurance stable during that time? And it was. Then we randomized it. So people came back at 12 weeks. We repeated all the measures. Then we randomized them into either Swank or Wahls and trained them.
Excuse me, one point when you said the 12-week period was to see if they were consistent there.
Correct.
But it was consistent with fatigue.
Right. Fatigue was unchanged. Quality of life was unchanged. And how far they could walk was not changed.
Right.
Then we randomized them. They got trained on the Swank diet, which is a low-fat diet, less than 15 grams of saturated fat, 4 servings of whole grains, 4 servings of vegetables. And by the way, we added the vegetable requirement just because we thought that was the responsible thing to do. So we actually improved the quality of the Swank diet. And we restricted fat. People were eating a lot of poultry and fish. No red meat, no eggs. And if they were having dairy, it was non-fat dairy. Then the Wahls group was basically following, you think of Wahls paleo. So 9 cups of vegetables, 3 cups of greens, sulfur, the cabbage, onion, mushroom family, and deeply pigmented, 6 to 12 ounces of fish, meat, or poultry. We encourage liver once a week. We encourage wild-caught seafood, seaweed, nutritional yeast, fermented foods. And for the first 12 weeks, we took out nightshades. And so that's tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplants. For the second 12 weeks, people could begin to reintroduce the nightshades, 1 ingredient at a time. People, so they started the diet, they came back in at 12 weeks, and we repeated all the measures. And then they came back in at 24 weeks, and we repeated all the measures. And so the question was, between the measurement at the end of the observation period and the first 12 weeks, the primary outcome was, did fatigue severity reduce? And did Wahls reduce significantly more than Swank? And the answer is actually no. Wahls and Swank both reduced about the same amount at 12 weeks. And then at 24 weeks, again, Wahls and Swank were statistically not different, although Wahls was somewhat more than Swank. Statistically, it was equivalent. However, the more sensitive measure of fatigue, the modified fatigue impact scale, Wahls was better at 12 weeks, but not statistically different than Swank. At 24 weeks, it was statistically and clinically much greater reduction for Wahls than Swank. The quality of life measures, and there's the mental health quality of life and the physical health quality of life, Wahls was better than Swank at 12 weeks and also at 24 weeks. And then the other thing was, did walking endurance improve? And as you think about that, we have to remind everyone that one of the instructions was, do not change your exercise routine, because we wanted this to be a dietary intervention. And people did not, they didn't change their exercise routine. So between 0 and 12 weeks, the walking distance or walking endurance did not change for either group. However, interestingly enough, at 24 weeks, the Wahls group was significantly walked farther, that is better endurance than Swank, that was both clinically meaningful and statistically meaningful. And I really want to stress that a lot of studies are excited when you get a statistically meaningful difference, a nice p-value, that's always gratifying. But more important than the p-value is, was it clinically significant? So the fatigue reduction was clinically significant both for the fatigue severity scale and the modified fatigue impact scale. We were about 3 times the clinical significant difference. And for the improvement in quality of life, that measure is 5. And we were 2.5 to 3.5 times the measure of clinical significance. And for walking distance, again, we achieved clinically significant improvement in addition to statistically significant improvement.
Now, for people who don't understand the language of geeks and which validates a study, is it clinically and statistically significant? That means it's the real deal, not that it kind of looks like it's helpful or something. No, it's statistically significant, meaning it really worked. It's
Yes.
really working. Now, what is the history of the Swank diet? I'm sure most people don't know what that is.
Well, Roy Swank is a neurologist who observed during World War II, when people could not get eggs or butter or sugar, the incidence and severity of MS, new cases and severity of relapse, frequency of relapse was markedly reduced. After the war, there's a lot of interest in the fat hypothesis for heart disease. Swank believed that there was a vascular component to MS. And he began having his dietitians teach his patients to follow a very, very low fat diet. He recommended less than 15 grams of fat, and he had all of his patients instructed on that. And so he followed 250 folks over 50 years. About half of them were lost to follow-up. So he had 144 that he followed over this time period. In his practice, the people who stayed on a very low-fat diet were less likely to die, less likely to become wheelchair dependent. Now, the criticisms are no MRIs, we don't have blinded assessors, it's not randomized, and the dropouts were probably not random. Still, it's really interesting stuff. And the fact he followed people for 50 years, and he's the very first guy to say, you know what, diet matters.
Yes, right.
So, my hat's off to him. I think he was a brilliant fellow, and he had a very important role to play.
Plus, he had the courage to talk about food has something to do with the development of an autoimmune disease.
And the other courage that he had, Dr. Tom, is he wrote a book for the public. And he said, if you want to try diet, here's what I recommend. And so his neurologic colleagues gave him a very hard time for writing that book to the public. But he felt morally compelled to let the public have more tools that they could use to manage their own disease.
That's a man who had the courage to follow what he believed may be helpful for people. And
Correct.
I remember
and believed in patient empowerment.
Yes, yes. And I remember in my early education in the 70s, my health education, Roy Swank. I read about Roy Swank, and I read about all the people that said this guy's a nutcase, and there's no science behind what he says. But he had the courage to continue. And
and he documented his work. He published a 3.5-year, 5-year, 7.5-year, 13-year, 25-year, and a 50-year experience.
Yeah.
That is really important peer-reviewed literature.
So the concept of low-fat diet had some validity for some people. It seemed to help. But
Yeah.
Dr. Terry has taken that to the next level, to where, Dr. Terry, if someone comes to you who has been diagnosed with some form of multiple sclerosis, what's the percentage likelihood, if they are compliant, if they are just going to toe the line and really follow the guidelines of the Wahls protocol, would you say 3 out of 10, 5 out of 10 likely will see benefit? Have you followed any numbers on that?
Well, let's talk about the peer-reviewed published research. Between 60 and 70% are going to experience reduced fatigue, improved quality of life. And so, and that's just doing the diet. That doesn't include the folks who are willing to do meditation, take care of the sleep, address the vitamin D, be sure that we've monitored the homocysteine, add exercise. And so it comes down to how much of the Wahls protocol, how much of the self-care are you willing to do?
Yes. And it's so critically important to understand that the definition of crazy is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. You know, if you're diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, clearly something about how I've lived my life up to this point has set me up or contributed to this. So I need to change something. I need to change my paradigm. You can't just think, okay, I'm going to take a pill, keep living the life I have been, and I'm going to be fine.
You know, one of the things that I certainly see in my practice and in my clinical trials, the longer people have their first autoimmune diagnosis, and they may be taking the latest drug-based treatment for that autoimmune condition and their other comorbid problems. But if they don't address the diet and lifestyle factors, those autoimmune processes will continue. And every 5 to 10 years, they will develop another autoimmune diagnosis.
Wow.
So it was very common that people came in with 2 or 3 autoimmune diagnoses.
And what is the most common second autoimmune condition that your multiple sclerosis patients who you have followed comes in with?
Hashimoto's.
Yeah.
Hashimoto's, that's a rheumatoid arthritis, probably comes in second. We see a lot of psoriasis. I see a lot of inflammatory bowel disease. So you can sort of look at what are the prevalent autoimmune diagnoses.
Yes, yes. That's so very, very common. You know, I've been doing a lot of research, putting some new presentations together, and there's a couple of points that I've been bringing up that I think are helpful for everyone here tonight. The first is, in the United States, 8 out of the top 10 causes of morbidity, meaning you're not well, and mortality, meaning you're dying, 8 out of the top 10 are inflammatory diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 that are not are suicides and accidents, you know, if you're in a car accident.
Well, and let me tell you, I think suicide is an inflammatory disease.
That was the next comment I was about to make. I agree with you that people are set up because of brain dysfunction, which is their brain hormones called neurotransmitters are out of balance. And that's a common syndrome from inflammation. So the question, when you're not feeling well, irrespective of how you're not feeling well, the question is, where is my inflammation coming from? And when you ask that question, most of you have heard me say before, the most common source of gasoline on the fire in the body causing inflammation is what's on the end of your fork.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Wahls, are there some people who would not benefit from following a Wahls protocol? Is there a certain kind of blood type or anything like that?
No. You know, and I want to make clear, I know there are people who are vegetarian or vegan for their spiritual beliefs.
Right.
And we have vegetarian and vegan versions of the Wahls protocol.
Marvelous.
We also have folks who have seizure disorders and would benefit from a ketogenic diet. So we have ketogenic versions. And we have created fasting programs. So for those who are ready to explore fasting strategies, we have guidance for that as well. So it can be personalized to match your medical needs and your personal beliefs as well.
Marvelous. That's just marvelous. And for those of you that are not sure about the fasting thing, you can put your toe in the water by just having your first meal a little later in the morning, so that the period of not eating from the time of dinner, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up, a couple of hours that you wait before you eat again, that's called a fasting mimicking diet. And the common time frames is 8-16, that you try to get all of your food within an 8-hour block of time. Marzi and I do that regularly because Gio's bedtime is usually between 5 and 6. So we want to eat before that. So we have our breakfast somewhere around 10:30, 11. So we're trying to get all of our food in that 8-hour window. And then just naturally it happens And you know, you do it once in a while, you try it, you see if see how it feels for you. That's a nice way of being introduced to a fasting component to your dietary lifestyle.
And I suggest that people just gradually ease into this. I don't want you to go into a water fast or prolonged fast or even intermittent fasting first. Gradually ease into time restricted feeding if you're interested. Truly, the very first step is get rid of the sugar, processed foods, add more vegetables.
Right.
And then when you're ready, take out the gluten containing grains. And for many, dairy is also a problem. But even if all you can do is just eat more vegetables and get rid of the sugar, that's a huge step in the right direction.
Huge step, huge step. Get you going in the right direction. Critically important to take baby steps that in your lifestyle and in your world you can handle.
Dr. Tom, what I stress to people is I want you to select an intervention that you can actually do 100%.
Yeah.
If you decide, I want to do Wahls level 2, but it's too hard, you can only do it 50%. That was far less effective than to say, you know what, I could do 9 cups of vegetables 100%. Then that's what you should do, 100%. And then you get that down, and that's really easy. Like, okay, I'll add the next level thing, which is, I guess, going gluten-free. I'll add that next. But whatever it is you're going to do, pick an intervention that you can actually do and be successful. And then you can decide, okay, that I've got that down. What would I like to explore next?
Marvelous. Yeah, exactly. Get the small wins, which gives you the confidence and the experience to go for bigger wins. I'm going to start with a few questions that we have. The first one is, let's see. I saw this great question from Brazil, but it'll come back. 95% of my meals are tons of Wahls assorted veggies, a little meat, but detour very few times a week with watered down lemonade or one marshmallow. Feeling bad. Oh my gosh, it's on my computer here. It didn't quite take.
Must I never deviate from the diet?
Yeah, in hindering advanced and reversing effects or advanced or reversing effects of various autoimmune pathologies. No, I'm sorry. I confused 2 of them there at the same time. Let me continue that. I must never deviate from diet, hard with families diet. Yeah.
So here are my thoughts. If I have gluten, dairy, or eggs, I have incapacitating pain. So I never deviate from my diet because I have severe pain. But as I mentioned earlier, what I want you to do is to find a dietary intervention that you and your family can be completely successful with, and do that. Exactly. And then as you get more comfortable, consider what is the next intervention that you want to add.
The next question is, do you still take supplements with DMDs?
So again, if you have a disease-modifying drugs, and many people may benefit from taking disease-modifying drugs to get their autoimmune disease under control. I would certainly, if you were in my practice, measure your vitamin D level and take care of that. I would probably measure your B12 level and your homocysteine and take care of that. And depending on your clinical exam, I might measure other things such as lipids, fatty acid levels, and make adjustments there as well. And then I may investigate other specific nutrients and address those.
Next one, I was diagnosed with Rrms in November 1997 and had symptoms since I was 26. Is 67 too last to have a change in diet actually help me?
Well, we have people in their 60s and their 70s begin adopting the diet and report to us improved mental clarity, improved mood, improved memory. And so, no, if your goal is to live and thrive, into your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100 and beyond, then a healthy diet should absolutely be part of that.
It's never too late to start.
It is
Gee,
never
just
too late.
wave goodbye to everybody. It's nighttime, night, 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 night. Oh, that's just, yeah, it's never too late to start, never. Hello, I've been following the Wahls protocol for 3 weeks. Is it wise to add bee products like royal jellies, propolis, honey, and pollen? Thank you.
So again, for specific supplement questions, do talk to your personal medical team. Bee products for many people can be anti-inflammatory, so it may be potentially beneficial.
How do I explain my MS symptoms and condition of being slow to my family members?
Well, one strategy would be to have the family member put on a backpack with a substantial amount of weight that they have to carry all day long, or to put on big ankle weights. So they have to have ankle weights on their ankles and about their wrists, and imagine that's what they have to do all day. It can be a huge challenge for people who don't have a autoimmune disease to understand the impact of autoimmune related fatigue.
Yes, yes. Let's see. Some MS symptoms seem to be impacted by the second shot of the vaccine. How can one reduce these symptoms?
So the IFM has a great website on COVID-19. Mary Agnes, hopefully you could put that up for everyone. I would send everyone there. So a couple of thoughts. As I've spoken with my neurology colleagues, my IFM neurology colleagues, there's a very consistent message that endorses taking the vaccine for people who have MS, whether you're taking a disease-modifying drug or not. The reason my colleagues are all endorsing taking the vaccine is that we have a lot of evidence that getting the wild type coronavirus increases the risk of severe relapse, increases the risk of developing more severe autoimmune problems if you get the wild type virus. The vaccine, I know people are concerned, will the vaccine increase my risk of a autoimmune process? Getting the virus will certainly appears to be a high risk of increasing the risk of relapse and worsening autoimmune process. What IFM has recommended for people to reduce the risk of more severe reaction to the vaccine is eating a lot of fermented food, having things like curcumin, quercetin, plenty of omega-3s, lots of mushrooms, and perhaps medicinal mushrooms as well. That is the strategy that I've used in preparation for taking the vaccine. And so that's the strategy that I recommend to my patients, my colleagues, and my tribe as they prepare to take the vaccine. I also do tell people that you'll certainly, it may be appropriate to reflect on your personal experience with vaccines. Have you had an adverse reaction to a vaccine? That may be a reason to be more cautious. Do you have a first-degree relative that have had an adverse reaction to vaccines? That may be a reason to be more cautious. However, we have literally had millions and millions of people who've gotten these vaccines. And so, at least in the MS world, there is not any publication of increased rate of relapse or adverse reaction following getting the vaccine.
Well, that's very good to know. It's very good to know. And we will get that IFM website for you. Mary Agnes will post it here in the chat room for everyone. They've got some great guidelines of how to help support your immune system.
Yeah, I certainly want people to check out that IFM webpage and to prepare yourself for taking the vaccine. For the long haulers, I also want to throw out there the long haulers who have persisting symptoms after getting the wild type coronavirus, they look very much like the autoimmune processes are activated, and the person is in that prodromal phase that Tom and I were talking about, that may occur for months to years before developing an overt autoimmune diagnosis. What those of us in the functional medicine world, we are using basically the Wahls protocol for these folks in an attempt to lower the inflammation and reverse the autoimmune processes. And we have observed, there's not a lot of published literature on this yet, but the clinicians are all observing this, that for many folks in the long hauler, as they get vaccinated, their symptoms resolve.
Question came in, why nightshades? How much of a role do nightshades play?
Well, again, we try to eliminate food sensitivity issues. If you were in my clinical practice or Dr. Tom's, we could do food sensitivity testing and we'd know which foods are a problem for you. We designed the research protocol in a way that did not require food sensitivity testing. So we took the nightshades out, but we reintroduced them. So it's a temporary removal to eliminate the foods that are most likely to cause trouble.
And you said reintroduce one at a time.
One ingredient per week.
Yes. And it's a problem for me, the nightshades, because I'm Irish, and that's potatoes, white potatoes, and I'm Italian. So that's tomatoes. And so I've got a double whammy. But what I have found in my life is that if I eat too many white potatoes, it does affect my blood sugar stability.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very common to see. And so I keep those to a minimum. But the whole world of lectin sensitivity, that's a category of foods, and nightshades fall in there. Some of the nightshades are lectins. That was the book, The Plant Paradox.
Yeah.
And they talked about lectins and the potential complications of lectins.
Now, my thoughts on that. Lectins are wide in the plant kingdom and in the animal kingdom. So if you eat food, you're going to be eating lectins. Right. We cannot eliminate lectins as long as we're eating food. The plant paradox puts you on a lower lectin diet. It's not a zero lectin diet. And for some individuals, in his experience, they've done very, very well with a plant paradox. I think Dr. Tom and I would rather put people on food sensitivity testing and have a specific diet based on that, and then assess your clinical response.
Fully agree. That's exactly my response to the concept that no one should eat lectins. I think that's not...
You'd have to stop eating.
Right. And no one should eat lectins that your immune system are fighting.
Correct.
And so you test to see, is my immune system, the armed forces in your body, is my immune system fighting tomatoes? I love tomatoes. I love tomato sauce. But if my immune system is fighting them, then I have to listen to what my body is telling me. There's something about that food that's not good for me.
You could choose to not listen and suffer.
Yes, right. Oh, that's a bumper sticker. You could choose to not listen, and suffer.
Correct.
Is the first step to healing autoimmune diseases begin with healing the gut, the leaky gut? If so, does the Wahls protocol address this? What other steps should rheumatoid patients take?
So healing the leaky gut, very, very important. I talk a lot about bone broth, and I have some great bone broth recipes. So that will be very helpful. And then we discuss some supplements that may be helpful, such as glutamine. And for some individuals, food sensitivity testing to understand, are there more foods we have to restrict?
Right.
The folks who have a autoimmune process involving joints are much more likely to have problems with nightshades. Now, when I see a patient such as rheumatoid arthritis, I will tell them that they would benefit from doing the Wahls elimination diet first, which takes out nightshades. if they're ready to do that. If they could do it 100%, we start there. If they look at me and say, no, that's too big a change, then we have a negotiation.
I'm Italian. I'm not going to do that. Right.
Then we have a negotiation. What is it that you're confident you could do 100%? And that's where we start.
Now, I want to remind everyone that, as Dr. Wahls said about bone broth is high in gelatin tannate, and that acts like a gauze cloth over the leaky gut, the damaged area, so cells can heal easier. And it really helps. And let's just stay on bone broth for a minute. Dr. Wahls, how much bone broth do you recommend a person take per day?
Well, I broke my arm on a bike accident, so I have a little bit of a cast here. So I have bone broth going in my slow cooker. And so right now I'm having a pint to a pint and a half every day. Some days I have a pint twice a day. During the winter, I typically have a cup to 2 cups every day. During the summer, I don't have it as consistently because I'm not having soups quite as much. But I particularly love having bone broth, and I put a teaspoon of my medicinal mushrooms in that bone broth. It's delicious. Plus, I get my medicinal mushrooms. And right now, I'm doing a mug in the morning and a mug in the afternoon.
I want to remind people, when you're working on healing the gut, you have to understand that the gut, it's a tube. It starts at the mouth and goes to the other end, winds around in the center there, but it's one big long tube. And it's what is inside the tube that creates the inflammation that causes the leaky gut. And so that's the microbiome. So if you're diagnosed with a leaky gut, if some tests come back positive for this, then you, by definition, you have to rebuild the microbiome. You can't think that, well, I'm just, I'll take some bone broth and I'll take some glutamine, I'll take some vitamin D, and it's all going to be fine. That's an important component, but you have to rebuild the microbiome. And Dr. Wahls, in the Wahls protocol, is there an emphasis on the diversity of rebuilding the diversity of the microbiome?
Yeah, I talked about having 200 different plant species in the year. And this is the diversity of the food that you eat will have a huge impact on the diversity of the microbiome. And also you'll want to have more resistant starch, more fiber. I talk to my patients about their poop. The Bristol stool chart goes 1 to 7. It's a very nice research tool, but patients don't know 1 to 7, but they do know rocks, logs, snakes, pudding, and tea. And so, if you got pudding and tea, you have too much inflammation and you need less fiber. And so maybe it's no salad, no fruits, and it's soups and stews. If you've got rocks, you don't have enough. So now it's more fiber, more fermented vegetables, kimchi, sauerkraut, more resistant starch such as inulin or green banana flour. Snakes are sort of perfect, but a lot of folks with neuroimmune conditions have difficulty controlling and have bladder accidents and bowel accidents. So if the snakes are getting into your pants, then you have to back off. And maybe need to be slightly a bit more constipated.
In terms of neurological imbalances that progress into diseases, it was Dr. Michael Gershon, 1999, with his book, The Second Brain, that he told us for every one message from the brain going down telling the gut what to do, there are 9 messages from the gut going up telling the brain what to do. And when you have a brain or a neurological imbalance, then it's extremely likely the first place you're going to get benefit is by dealing with the gut.
Yeah, there's increasing evidence, say with Parkinson's and now also with MS, that pathology appears first in the gut.
Yes.
And so people with Parkinson's are constipated for years before they develop neurologic symptoms.
Yes.
Now realize that people with MS are also constipated for years before developing neurologic symptoms.
You know, I didn't say this at the beginning, and I meant to, that Dr. Terry Wahls has received one of the greatest honors in the world of holistic or complementary medicine, that she was awarded the Linus Pauling Award, which is the biggest of big deals
That is a big deal.
in our world. And one of the fellow recipients is Professor Alessio Fasano. He received the, only one person a year gets this award. And Professor Fasano published a paper last year that really says it all. You know, all disease begins in the leaky gut. That's the title of the paper. And this guy is the chair of mucosal immunology at Harvard and the chair of the Celiac Research Center at Harvard. And
It all
chief of
begins in the gut.
gastroenterology. All disease. So this is what our
Which of course means it all begins with your fork.
That's right. Exactly right. Exactly right. And this is what our young doctors are being taught at Harvard Medical School right now. All disease begins in the leaky gut. So where does that all come from? And Dr. Wahls just took it right back to where it all comes from. It all starts with your fork. What's on the end of your fork?
And if I want to take it back even further, it starts with food policy in this country. That, you know, after World War II, we had the decision, and it seemed rational at the time, that increasing the calorie output would eliminate hunger. So there was a lot of subsidy to increase corn production and soybean production, which led to cheap, inexpensive calories. And then there was more women were in the workforce, there's more time pressure. And so to make life easier, we made products that were more convenient. And our businesses all over the world are reinforced for creating products that sell more. So they have a lot of economic pressure to create products that match my craving. So I'll overconsume, become addicted to products that are less and less nutritious and harmful.
Oh, very, very common, very common. Hello, thank you for the information you are sharing. I wonder, when can we get the Wahls protocol and general information in Spanish?
It's already in Spanish. I think we have 11 different languages. If you go to terrywahls.com, you can look at, see the translations. And then furthermore, if it's not in yet your language, please go to a publisher in your language that publishes health and wellness books and have them reach out either to Penguin directly, or they can reach out to us in customer service and we'll get them connected. And that's how more languages are added. So we have it in Russian, Chinese, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, German, French, Spanish.
Marvelous.
Would love to get your language if it's not there yet.
Started your program on Saturday. I expected it to be extremely difficult, and so far I've enjoyed it. I have celiac and Epstein-Barr virus as well as chronic fatigue. My energy is way up. My mood is way up, and it's remarkable how much it has helped with my anxiety.
Yes.
I can't thank you enough. I forgot to say the most important thing. I have less pain.
That is, and we hear that so commonly. Now, what people sometimes do is you adopt the Wahls protocol, you feel great, and you forget you were ever ill. And then you might slip up and feel like, you know, I got invited to some special event and they don't have any food for me and I'm hungry and I eat the wrong food. And will experience a flare of symptoms. And then forgive yourself and learn like, okay, I have to plan better.
Yeah, amen, amen to that. Do you have suggestion for good supplement to reverse tingling, burning symptoms from MS? Any functional medicine practitioner you recommend in Japan?
So the way to reverse the tingling, burning is to stop the inflammation. And so it's really diet and lifestyle. And reducing pain, improving mood, improving quality of life, those things happen very rapidly. Repairing the nerve tingling, it depends on where it is in your body. You may have to regrow that nerve from your brain out to that part of your body, and it will take time. It takes about 18 months to go from your brain to your toe. And you can sort of interpolate, it's less long to parts that are closer to your brain. But yes, we have absolutely seen that happen. And I want to remind people that this is more than diet. It's the entire program of self-care routine.
Yes, agreed. Would the protocol be helpful for someone with inclusion body myositis?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we do have some folks with that who've done very well.
Yeah, and in my full day presentation, I've got 2 papers that show in those studies, the patients with inclusion body myositis, every single one of them got better on a gluten-free diet, which is a component of the Wahls protocol.
Yeah, we have some folks from the Australia area with inclusion body disease that have done very well.
Dr. Wahls, how are we able to get a consultation with you or your team?
So we have a bunch of programs that are really superb. The Autoimmune Intervention Mastery program, that's an online course. And then for those who have the economic resources, I highly recommend the Radical Health Upgrade, because then you get weekly coaching with my health coach, and you get access to 12 weeks of group coaching with me and my health coach. And it's been really transformational. The Radical Health Upgrade takes a small number of people through 12 weeks of intensive support. And that's what I'd recommend. Now, if you're wanting individual consultations, you can reach out to my team at customer service at terrywahls.com, and they can tell you what the options are. But we really want to have people start with the Radical Health Upgrade, because for many, that has a radical transformation of their health. They're like, okay, because we teach you how to work with your existing medical team.
For someone who has been newly diagnosed with MS, do you recommend they get on a DMT in conjunction with one of the Wahls protocols, or do you recommend that they try the diet before getting on a DMT?
So I want everyone to be on the diet and the whole program. And then you have to examine in your heart, do you feel like you want to do a DMT and right away? Or do you want to do diet and lifestyle for a few months to see like, okay, things are going well, there's no relapses, my MRI is quiet, and that feels right. We don't have research to tell you which of the 2 answers is right for you. Definitely it's going to depend on the severity of your initial symptoms, the number of lesions and the locations of the lesions, in terms of how urgent it is to do a DMT now. But the goal absolutely long-term is no relapses and no active lesions.
I have a son now living in Malaysia, diagnosed 2 years ago. He lives alone, has read your books. I want to send him supplements from the UK. What are the basic minimum he should be taking?
Well, things that I address in my clinical trials and that I want addressed in my clinical practice. Vitamin D level. I want to know the homocysteine and have homocysteine, in that 4 to 7 range. And that I really need to monitor the homocysteine level to know what dose of B vitamins are necessary. But a B complex is often very, very helpful. Fish oil of some type may be very helpful. I'm very I like medicinal mushrooms a lot. I like to have people eat mushrooms a lot. So I throw that in. And I'm very fond of liver. People should have 6 to 8 ounces of liver each week. If they aren't willing to learn how to make liver and oysters and mussels, which, and liver is delicious prepared correctly. Like, oh my God, it is our family's favorite meal. If people want to make me a special meal, they know they have to make liver because it is so delicious. But if they aren't up for that, we have them get the Paleo Valley organ meat capsules.
I would like to know where you buy good quality supplements. Also, what supplements do you recommend for people with RRMS? I have 13 lesions in my brain. I've been on the protocol since June of this year. I feel so much better. Is there a food or supplement to repair the lesions? Thank you for doing what you do.
So what repairs the lesions is stopping the inflammation.
Right.
And that's, the diet and lifestyle program. And sending the signals to make the nerve growth factors. So, meditation, exercise will be very, very helpful. And following the MRIs to know, okay, if you had 13 lesions in June, do you have only 3 lesions now? So that's great. That's progress. But you had 13 lesions in June. Now you have 26. Oh, that's a problem. Then I would be encouraging you to take on a DMT. Now, I saw some questions about the vegetarian. So if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, in the Wahls protocol, we do talk about that, yes, there are vegetarian and vegan directions. So it is possible for those who are vegetarian or vegan for their spiritual beliefs to continue to follow the Wahls protocol. Absolutely.
Dr. Tom, would you please ask Dr. Terry what she considers medicinal mushrooms?
Well, did you know that mushrooms are a separate kingdom from plants and animals? That there are more mushroom species than plant species? Like, wow. Oh my God, that is so amazing.
I didn't know that.
And so if you're going to eat mushrooms, you need to be sure that these mushrooms are edible, they're culinary. And in the culinary, so edible mushroom world, there's more and more research being done on these culinary mushrooms for their health benefits. And those mushrooms that have been most thoroughly investigated are often classified as medicinal mushrooms. Things like reishi, turkey tail, chagas, cordyceps. And then there are many more Asian mushrooms that I'm not as familiar with that have, and in these cultures in the Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine, many native cultures have been using mushrooms as part of their healing traditions. So yes, I see the comment about Fantastic Fungi. That is a really fun film. And I should also throw out there, another film I'm going to pitch is Defying All Odds, which is the documentary about my life and my healing journey. So if people have not seen that yet, Tom, I'll get you the link for that so you can send that out to everyone.
We will post it and make sure that everyone has access to it.
Because that's a marvelous, marvelous film as well.
Marvelous, wonderful, wonderful. Dr. Wahls, you have a new book that's just come out. Can you tell us a little about that?
So that's the Wahls protocol, and what we did is we revised and updated that with my latest research. Although I don't have my waves research in there because that wasn't available yet. I talk about fasting, we talk about lectins, we talk about oxalates, we talk more about e-stim rehab. I've revised my supplement indications in there as well. It's about 35% new material. It is really phenomenal. And so even if you had the first version, absolutely, I would strongly, strongly encourage you to get the revised version. Plus we have some new recipes. And I put in a few more liver recipes in there.
My wife makes a liver pate. I never liked liver until she made this liver pate, and she uses bone broth with it and figs, and it is delicious. It's
I'll have to try that.
Remarkable. We'll send you the recipe.
Oh yeah, that sounds lovely. We will be absolutely delighted to try that.
And as Dr. Wahls is talking about medicinal mushrooms, I have a, Mary Agnes, please remind me, let's send out an invitation to my friend who is a world leading researcher in the field of medicinal mushrooms. And let's just have a Facebook Live about that in the future. Well, you know, we're already past the hour. I mean, it goes so quick. And I guess in closing, I'd like to suggest everyone order Dr. Wahls' new book.
Oh, yeah.
35% new information, even if you have the old one. And maybe you'll just open it one day to any page and you just read a paragraph and you say, wow, that's really important. That when you have these kind of resources, you don't have to read it page for page from the beginning to the end. Use the book as a reference. Go to the index in the back for headaches if you've got a headache and say, well, what does Dr. Wahls say about that? You don't have to read the whole book. You know, you may really enjoy it and do it, but just have it as a reference in your reference library for you and your family. And what's the name of the new book?
The Wahls Protocol, a radical new way to treat all chronic autoimmune conditions.
There you go. Dr. Terry Wahls, an icon in our field, thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you, Tom. Love you and your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.